cybersecurity industry and has spent his 20+ year career working in penetration testing, incident response, digital forensics, with federal agencies like the NSA, DC3, DIA, and DARPA. He started his career in cybersecurity in the US Navy and has a master's degree in network security from Capital College. And if you follow Marcus on Twitter, you probably already know this, but he is very passionate about giving back to the community through things like mentorship, hackathons, and speaking engagements. And then something you may not know about him is that he reads more than anyone I have ever met. So it is only suiting that we will have a giveaway today during the webinar, and we'll be giving away a copy of Tribe of Hackers, which is an upcoming book written by Marcus. And it's a collection of industry, career, and personal insights from more than 50 of the world's leading cybersecurity experts. So we're really excited about that. And stay tuned to learn more from Marcus about how you can win that. And as just a housekeeping point, as Marcus is speaking, I'll be moderating the QA section. So if you have any questions, type them out there, and we'll leave a few minutes at the end so that Marcus can answer some of those live as well. And without further ado, I'll hand things off to Marcus.
Hey, Jen, how you doing? Jen, can you just verify that you can hear me speaking?
Yes, I can hear you well, Marcus.
Thanks. So everybody, I apologize for those listeners out there. I've been sick all week. Had a kind of like flu type thing, and so my voice is kind of raspy. But I'm looking forward to hopefully sharing some information with you, and hopefully you can pick up a thing or two from the presentation. So feel free to drop any kind of question in the chat. I don't mind if Jennifer interrupts me during this conversation. I'm pretty quick on my feet, so I can answer any questions as they may come up. So I might pause myself from time to time because, like I said, I got a cold, and I try to be trying to. I don't want to cough or whatever in your ears if I can help it. All right. So we're gonna go here. I like to always look at. I'm kind of an artist myself, and I like artisan type stuff where people can make things like this. What's cool about this is a wheel, and wheels have been, have been in existence for thousands of years. And so I talk to a lot of people all the time about cybersecurity, and one of the things I kind of try to tell them is, like, you really don't have to reinvent the wheel, because there's plenty of resources out there to help you out, and free resources at that. We live in an amazing time where anybody with a browser can get information. The government, specifically NIST, has done a great job over time on putting out really good information. And also, MITRE is another organization. One second. So MITRE has put out a lot of information as well on the security side over the last, how many ever years. I've been known about MITRE for probably the last 20 years. So a combination between NIST and MITRE, you're probably going to be able to get a lot of your questions answered, and you're going to get a bunch of what I call speaking the right language, especially to management. If you're a cybersecurity person coming up, and you want to talk to management, and you want to make them understand what these things are, you can speak in even managerial language, because these books, these publications that they put out are so robust. It's pretty cool that you can just refer to them. You're essentially standing on the shoulders of giants. I'm convinced that if you wanted to, you could solely rely on NIST documents and some of the MITRE resources, and you could be a security guru just by focusing on those documents. So in this, I'm going to cover a couple of documents in this presentation. So the information is straight from the documents, so anybody can go read this information. And another thing you can do is you can actually, it's a difference between you telling your organization on how they should do stuff and basically saying this is NIST. This is a government organization that specializes in this. Definitely if you're in the U.S. And also overseas, they have the clout too as well. So let's get into it. So basically, what I'm referring to, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, this is a document. If you type in the Google NIST Cybersecurity Framework, you'll get this document that comes up. So what's really cool about this thing here is, like I said, how do you speak to management and executives? So the framework actually is pretty cool because it gives you guidance on how some of these things work. Your senior executive level people, this is your C-level management of the company. They should have input on the level of risk that they're willing to accept. And so some big companies have chief risk officers, and those risk officers have to take out insurance based on, sometimes based on the risk, if they can't cover the risk. So anytime one of these big breaches happen, there's definitely going to be some lawsuits going left and right. And so that amount of risk, basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to cover as much risk as they can. And sometimes that's not going to be good enough. So you can see anybody who has a big breach, what happens is that the insurance companies will pay a certain amount, but many times if it's a big breach, the insurance doesn't even cover it. So a chief risk officer is going to have to say, how much insurance or whatever they take out from a cyber risk perspective. And then from that level, whether the CISO is kind of like that mid-level business process in there. So there's a lot of people, CISO is a popular title. Chief Information Security Officer is a popular title. They're going to be like the middle person translating that business stuff into actionable risk-related stuff from a technology perspective. This is all about money at the end of the day. Cybersecurity, a lot of people, I think sometimes we talk about security for security's sake, but with business, it's a business proposition. Like, how much will this hurt us? What's the odds of this happening? And all those things. So we're talking about pure risk management here. And as you see down here at the bottom is where the operational level. And I know that I'm a nerd. So that's the level that I like talking about a lot. And most of the time when people talk about security, they're talking about it at the operational level on how you do things. What's cool about the cybersecurity framework is it actually addresses that stuff, and it allows you, as if you're very technical, what it's going to let you do is going to let you communicate to the business process level, and even up to the senior executive level on risk. It is good. It's free. It's something that everybody should read and everything. So I'm going to walk through that document, and I'm going to give you some of my commentary. Again, at any point here, you can type a message in the chat. We'll try to get to it as we can. So how to use the framework? Basically, this is the framework can be used to manage your security program overall, in my opinion. It's not really talking so much about compliance, but it can be used part of compliance. The framework can be used as a way to, as it says here, identifying and assessing and managing. So basically that whole build, measure, and maintain thing that the title of this presentation, that's what the cybersecurity framework is for. And it'll get you a long way as far as compliance goes as well. So there's a core. So the core, what it talks about functions, categories, subcategories. It has a lot of informative resources. Those functions, we'll get to those. And the categories, it'll tell you what category. Usually the categories, if you look at an organization, and we'll get to the categories later, I look at those categories almost as if you see policy in an organization, the policy would kind of like outline a lot of those categories and subcategories. And informative resources, but like I said, some of the informative resources free. And what we're doing is we're just going off on all the stuff that the government gives you for free. So now when a lot of people talk about the cybersecurity framework, they talk about the core functions, the identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Now these are pretty cool because it's a really nice way and 5 bullets here to encapsulate a lot of stuff. And I would say if you can do all of these functions well, you're going to have a reasonably secure organization. You're going to reduce a lot of risk. And again, from a business level, you're going to be able to reduce that risk. And at the end of the day, the risk is all about how much money you're paying out for breaches, how much money you're spending on stuff, how much value. It could be monetary of your IP, your customer data, things of that nature. So if you can do all these things here in these functions, you're going to be pretty dang good. And if you go through when you go through the cybersecurity framework, it really explains this pretty dang well. And as far as like levels, you probably will never see me climbing a mountain, but building a cybersecurity program is definitely hard. The main part is hard. It's a couple of different things. There's politics involved, and there's money involved. Sounds like the real world a lot, but that's what you have in trying to build a cybersecurity program. Everything costs money, even personnel costs money. So it's hard to kind of like to build that program. And there's different levels. Now, the framework has this thing called implementation tiers, which is fantastic. It's not intended to be a maturity level, because you hear people talking about their maturity level, but when you kind of look at it, it kind of does speak to a maturity level of organizations. Again, go to the framework, read it. So what I'm trying to do is, there's a lot of people out there that probably never paid attention to the framework. This is a really good primer for digging into it and why this is important. The partial is essentially just so there's a level 0 that a lot of organizations are at. Again, NIST tries to say this is not a maturity level, but when you start going in and you're reading these different levels, it sounds a lot like a maturity level, like a CMM type framework. And so I like this right here, these 5 different core functions and these implementation tiers are going to be really cool, because what you can do is you can measure your ability to identify stuff, right? Do you have stuff inventoried, your ability to defend, and then you can measure that here about what tier that your organization is at. And a lot of people do not know or understand what levels that they're at here. Also, another thing that I like about the cybersecurity framework, if you go through the points, if you go through the functions and categories, you're going to be able to do essentially what, like I got a replay booth here from the NFL. You're going to be able to go under the hood and kind of figure out how your security program looks. Now, sometimes people think that they have a really awesome program, and they're not at the tier that they think they're at. And there are sometimes people think that they have no cybersecurity, and they don't realize that they do have certain things in place. So what you can do here is you can compare basically, like by reviewing these processes. It says right here, I like how the document puts it. The framework can be used to compare an organization's current activities with those outlined in the framework core. So the framework core, again, is the identity, respond, detect, and all that stuff. this is really critical, and I love how the NIST does that. The cybersecurity framework does, because it talks about a current profile. So anyway, you go through and you do an event, you look at your organization, and then you have a target profile. So the current profile is where you're at right now, and the target profile is where your organization wants to be. Now, a lot of people, if you can't measure, this is what I like about this. A lot of organizations don't have a good way to measure where they are as far as cybersecurity goes. Some organizations judge what their profile is based on last security, like pen test or something like that, but it shouldn't be. I recommend the organizations go through this cybersecurity framework and truly understand their current profile. And then what they can do is they can say, dang, we want to be here. So it's the core and it's the tiers of those cores that you want to build up and strengthen that muscle in your cybersecurity program. And so this is something that you want to continuously improve. So I would say at least every year, and I would say probably quarterly, you want to go through and review what your current profile is and what that target profile looks like. Now, you can have different goals. You can have a 1-year goal, a 3-year goal. A lot of people switch jobs so much. A 1-year goal is probably a long-term goal. But so I would say maybe quarterly, monthly, and a 3-year plan. But you can actually spell this out in all the different things. And then what you're doing on a quarter is you're measuring your current profile and what you have to do to close those gaps. So anyway, so the gaps right here, it says right here, it might reveal gaps. People say they have a gap analysis. I heard people talking about they're doing a security gap analysis a lot. But in my opinion, like, what are you measuring against? Like, so basically, you can't measure yourself against somebody else, because a lot of people do that. You got to measure yourself against yourself. And that's like, what's so dope about this is, like, if you look at yourself and said, hey, here's where I currently am at, and here's where I need to get, that's exactly how you would measure it. And you should have your own personal goals. But I like how this specifies this, and it's really good reading. This document is a brilliant read. All right, so basically this is how you create a current profile. You go through the core categories, subcategories, and see how they align with those functions. So like I said, sometimes people don't think that they have anything in place, but sometimes you may. And I even have to explain to customers sometimes, yeah, you actually do have a little bit of this here. You have some of that there. But it's just bringing all that stuff together and understanding how all those things fit together in a security program. And that's going to be your current profile. So how can you build? I think you can do it. I tell people, I kind of tell people sometimes, I kind of chuckle sometimes when I've had people introduce themselves to me as motivational speakers and life coaches. I just like to motivate people. I say, maybe I'm a motivational speaker. I say, when I talk, people get motivated. So hopefully I'm motivating you to check out this document. So I believe that you can build whatever you want to build. And so this is how you build a cybersecurity program. And again, this is from the Cybersecurity Framework itself. It talks about this, how you prioritize and scope what your program is. So a lot of times people don't understand what they're actually trying to protect. So basically, there might be stuff I see in many cases where people are trying to protect systems that don't need any protection per se in the big scheme of things as far as risk goes. And that's totally possible. There's systems out there that don't fit in the big scheme of things. A lot of organizations to orient. Here's where you're trying to create that current profile. Excuse me for the cough and stuff. But you can also conduct this risk assessment. A lot of these things are chicken and the egg. And what the framework says is that you do have an opportunity to whatever you have done from a documentation perspective. If you got a pen test, if you got an assessment, whatever, that could be your starting point to do all this stuff. And right here, the conduct So basically conducting a risk assessment is one of the first things that you kind of have to do. It says this assessment could be guided by organizations' overall risk management process or previous risk assessment activities, whatever they may be, right? So it's cool to start there. But like when I say chicken and egg, what I mean by that is that like we do at ThreatCare, you probably know that we do breach and attack simulation. Well, what was happening is we would get to these organizations, and these organizations didn't have any security in place. Like, what are we going to do breach and attack simulations against, right? If you don't have anything, there's nothing we can do for you. So now our approach is like, oh, cool. We need to help organizations get to the place where they can actually test stuff, right? So how do you do that? So and I'm going to get to the next slide here. We're going to look at another publication here. It's the NIST SP. So when you see SP, stands for Special Publication 800-30. Man, I'm telling you, NIST has a document for everything. Some people think it's just for government, but the stuff is applicable to anything. And if you really look at it though, NIST, NSA, and other government organizations have pretty much they created cybersecurity, like real talk. So these are great documents that can be applied to your business, or if you work in a government, great, or any kind of place that has sensitive data. These NIST documents are great for you. So this is one of the diagrams in here, how it talks about risk assessments. So the first thing you have to do is frame the risk of your organization. And I said, some people struggle with this. They don't know how to frame the actual risk to their organization. Because like I saw Kubernetes come out the other day. It was a big vulnerability. And so the first thing you need to know is like, does that even affect us at all? And some organizations, they might not know, if that's a risk that pertains to them. I see it all the time. So how do you frame the risk and some of that whole inventory thing about the systems you have and all that stuff? How do you frame certain risks? And you have to, so basically Kubernetes comes out, you have to assess that risk. On the other side of the house, we don't use that. So the response is nothing. If the response could have been, hey, we need to patch this. But monitoring, you need to be able to know what's on your system, what's vulnerable, all these different things. But from a risk assessment perspective, this document walks you through the whole process. So that document again is 800-30. Again, some of these things are like a chicken and egg, but if what you do is you go through and like, all right, boom, you type in NIST risk assessment, and then you get this document. So everything that you probably, most of everything you need to build a cybersecurity program, to build it and measure it and all that stuff, the NIST is already taken care of. So get into this real quick. This is pretty cool. So this is back to the cybersecurity framework. Again, this is the functions. Those functions are identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. So what's cool about this, it breaks these categories down to subcategories and such, where it's talking about asset management, business environment, governance, right? And so when you read through this document and it talks about the business environment and the questions that it will say that just all the things about the business environment, you should go, every organization should be able to go through here and be able to answer all these things. I know it's just kind of tiny, but this is table 1 in the appendix of the cybersecurity framework. You should understand all these things about your organization. You should be able to go through it and answer the questions. I'm not saying that you're going to be good at everything, but if you answer all the questions in an honest manner, you're going to know exactly what tier you fit. So you might be really good to be able to identify. some organizations focus on the technology stuff. They're going to be good at detecting and responding. But to be to have really comprehensive risk management, you need to have all of this stuff. So you should strive to be a high tier. You want to be a 3 or 4 and all those different things.
Okay, Marcus, we have a couple questions that came up related to this. How do you keep the document from appearing so overwhelming? And then is it safe to say that the categories within the cybersecurity framework align to security control areas, and subcategories would be specific controls?
Yeah, absolutely. So is that 2 questions, Jen? If so, give them to me one at a time.
Yeah. Is it safe to say that the categories within the cybersecurity framework align to security control areas, and that subcategories would be specific controls?
So there is, like, I would say the most technical things. There are technical controls in protect, detect, and respond pretty much. There are some technical controls, but I wouldn't say it's a direct alignment, because most products they actually do multiple things, and all the big companies for sure are coming out with products that does multiple things across the thing. So definitely with identity management and access control, there are definitely products that do that stuff. If you look at data security, but then when you drill down, and I'll show you my next slide perhaps, is it actually gets down to the even deeper into that, right? So identity and asset management, it gets a little bit deeper. There's surely going to be some technical controls that you can buy, products that you can buy, or open source tools that you can use to be able to address some of these issues. Some of these issues are going to be policies. Some of these things are going to be training your personnel. Some of these things are going to be getting your buy-in from your executive management. But what's cool about this is that as you go down, as you go from left to right, here to here to here, you're going to be able to get even like more granular on what that means, as far as sometimes there's going to be a product, sometimes there aren't. I mean, you can have a spreadsheet, and a spreadsheet can satisfy some of these things. So now I'm going to drill down to CM8, because right here it says NIST Special Pub 853. So even the language that it uses here and the type of system that it tells you to get, you can actually use this to actually invest in products that help you do this. Or it could be something open source. It could be a spreadsheet, like I said. But what's cool about this is that all the language in the vernacular, you can take that and you can speak to that to your organization. This inventory system must do this, do that, do this. I don't have to be an expert on inventory systems, but I know from here, this is telling me what that should look like. Hopefully that makes sense. What's the next question?
So the next question, is there a recommendation that you have to keep that from feeling so overwhelming?
Well, I think that overall, even though this seems like it's overwhelming, this is actually tiny compared to other frameworks. And also, if you just read through, I think this document is like 50 something. I mean, I don't think it's not a big document. Sorry about that. So even though it could seem a bit overwhelming compared to the things that are alternatives, I think it's very manageable and practical. Any more questions?
Yeah, you're good to go and move on. We have a couple more, but we'll save those for the end so we don't get off track.
Okay, cool, fantastic. All right, so as I said, like from left to right, what I like to do is that you can actually go in here. It gives you more information about the category, the subcategory, and it gives you plenty of information from other things. Now, different organizations are running different stuff. This is CIS, CCS as well, COBIT. So there's all these different things here. But like I said, I'm a big fan of NIST. I guess maybe I'm biased because I used to work in that area. I used to work with those kind of agencies. Also, like I said, like going to the informative resources and actually digging the information out of there as well is fantastic. So so a lot of people struggle with writing policy. And so this is actually a really good way to actually build policy for your organization. Because if you can take the stuff straight from, you can look at the cybersecurity framework, then go to the other publications. You can throw out stuff that you don't need. There might be some kind of government or regulatory requirements related to these things that you might have to find out. But this is a great start for an organization if you don't have anything. And on that risk, so this is where I'm going to tie in the MITRE ATT&CK Framework. So Jen, if we have any more questions on the NIST piece before I get into the MITRE thing.
Yeah, so do you have any thoughts on the Baldrige Cybersecurity Excellence Builder for helping with the NIST Cybersecurity Framework?
I'm not aware of that. I haven't researched it at all. I'll look it up though.
That's it.
All right, cool. So here's something that I like to talk about. I don't like to talk about it because it's a tragedy. This is the hurricane that hit Houston recently, and I was thinking to myself, and like back when I was younger, it was hard for cities and municipalities and even countries to kind of like react to certain things. Well, now, even though there's a lot of tragedy around the hurricanes and a lot of property damage, the loss of life has definitely been limited over time. And that's because we're really good at predicting where storms are going to hit. I mean, like pretty precise. You pretty much have, up to 48 hours warning. Well, in cybersecurity, I think that we have the same opportunity to understand what that risk looks like and essentially what the threat actor, even though a hurricane is a natural disaster, that is somewhat of a threat actor and can cause issues when it comes to availability of resources and things of that nature. So if you look at an attacker, like a hacker, quote unquote, as that threat actor, I think we've come a long way on, we know what the attackers are going to do. One of the things I talk about all the time is I think a lot of companies do waste. It's not even I think companies are wasting money on cybersecurity, and there's a couple of different reasons why. Sometimes they spend it on the wrong tools. Sometimes they buy tools and they don't really utilize them to the maximum. And sometimes products are just duds. Sometimes people buy snake oil. But I think there were things like, and we're getting into the MITRE ATT&CK Framework and what I like about it. Basically, MITRE ATT&CK Framework allows you to, and this is closely aligned to the assessment and building up, getting to a different tier per se. Even though the tier is not a maturity level, I kind of view it as a maturity level anyway. So basically, validating configuration of tools that you think they're going to work. Also, validate configuration of tools before you buy them, because people buy stuff and then they figure out it doesn't work in their environment. And I've seen a lot of people do that as well. So the MITRE ATT&CK Framework is broken down into tactics, and all these tactics here are to kind of like highlight or outline what attackers would do on the network, from initial access to execution and things of that nature. And so why I like this is because this is actually saying, look, these are what attackers do, because there's so many people believing it's a myth that hackers can walk on water essentially. And so what I say is that these things, the tactics are describing the laws of gravity per se on things that an attacker, has to do to launch a successful attack. So here's how that looks. And this again, we had a comment about the overwhelming nature of the NIST stuff. Well, when you look at this dang thing, this attack matrix, it can definitely appear a little bit overwhelming as well. So if you look at the top here, here's the different phases of it. What I used to call the phases of an intrusion. So this is initial access to stuff that somebody would do. And so essentially from a detection perspective, from a defender perspective, if you're trying to get better at cybersecurity, the goal would be to try to detect as much things as possible along these different things. Now, the attack framework came from the initial work that people did. Lockheed Martin released this cyber kill chain thing a long time ago. And a cyber kill chain, what was unfortunate to a lot of people was the cyber kill chain was proprietary and it was trademarked by Lockheed Martin. What's really cool about the attack matrix, this is MITRE has released this and it's open source, and it's kind of like they're trying to involve the community, and it's somewhat community driven, which is pretty cool. So you can actually submit stuff for the attack matrix yourself. There's a lot of friends that I've seen have submitted stuff in here. So some of the popular stuff, like if you look at lateral movement, it talks about passing the hash, passing the ticket, RDP. So what's cool about this, like I would say nobody's going to detect all this stuff, right? But you should strive to detect the things that are somewhat detectable. And what's cool though is that MITRE is working with some industry vendors, and industry vendors are also adopting this framework, and they're telling you what kind of activity they do detect. What's cool about that is you can do the activities and you can make sure that your instrumentation is working properly. Another reason I really like the attack framework is because it's standardizing the vernacular that we use as an industry on a blue team and red team. All right, so the blue team's job is to defend against the attacks. The red team's job is to try to mimic the attacks. So for instance, here's RDP, and this is why an attacker would use it. This is how an attacker would try to use it. And so if you're an attacker, you can say, all right, cool, we're gonna do X, Y, Z. We're gonna do this, you can call it a playbook or if you want to, and we're going to imitate these different things. What's cool about this is that by imitating that attack, now you have industry standard vernacular, and you have use cases on why you use that from a testing perspective. Command and control. Again, this is how you describe that from a red team perspective. And if you're writing, if you do an incident response on a blue team, this is how you would address that and talk about it. And there's plenty of information under, and these things get updated all the time. This is a common tactic that we see all the time. Service execution. Down here, it also has mitigation strategies down here. So sometimes as a red teamer, a lot of times red teamers do stuff, and sometimes red teamers struggle with mitigation. Sometimes the blue team struggles with defining the attack. I think what attack does is it leverages both perspectives really well inside this wiki. And I believe this might be old wiki screenshots. The wiki has been updated recently. Data encrypted. Again, this is what it's talking about here is exfiltration over command and control. It's encrypted as well, and all those different things. So what's cool about this is that we have all these different things that you can actually just manually try to run. You can have those different tools that does some of these different things. And also like what we do at ThreatCare, we wrote a tool that you can download for free to imitate a lot of this MITRE stuff as well. And it's pretty cool because what you can do is basically you can just look through the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and you can do you can just click on these tabs in our product, and you can do it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to actually just show. I'm going to actually show the tool and work real quick, so y'all can see. Y'all can download this for free, and I'll try to play around with it. All right, so this is our product, and as you see here, you have different tiles to do different stuff, and you can click to the different techniques as well to try stuff. So if you wanted to play around with DNS tunneling credit cards, you can just click here, and it's going to attempt to do that. Again, so there's going to be certain different levels of a different tier. So if you're good enough to detect everything else, but you haven't figured out how to detect DNS tunneling, this might be a good tool for you. If you want to roll the dice, this is the roll the dice feature. It takes 11 different tactics and run those different tactics. So if you want to play around with some lateral movement and stuff like that, you can do that stuff. If you want to play around and do some credit card related stuff, you can just, and so playbooks, we're going to do a bunch of different techniques, and all this stuff is based off the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So basically, that's if you want to. So this is like, how do you get to like the highest level attainable from a security perspective, where from the tier perspective, and also there's several different models out there for cybersecurity maturity. How do you get to those levels? And so I believe that you got to test at the end of the day. And a lot of organizations are doing purple teaming, and that's the whole function. The whole purpose of purple teaming is to be able to do that as well. We're going to do a book giveaway, so stand by. We're going to take questions real quick, and we're also going to give that book away. So Jen, is there any questions?
So let's see. I don't. Okay, so one question. So they mentioned that it is perhaps a little bit out of scope, but what do you make of the top 20 CIS and the CIS RAM as guidelines?
Yeah, I like the CIS benchmark, the top 20 or whatever, what's the latest iteration of it. Don't have a real problem with it. I just like the comprehensive nature of for the cybersecurity framework. So if we're recommending companies, we always recommend that they use the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. And a lot of organizations that we work with are taking that as their guidance to build their cybersecurity programs.
It doesn't look like we have any additional questions at the moment, but if any of y'all, oh, okay, hang on. Somebody's writing. Okay, stand by for another question. If anybody else has questions, feel free to type them into the chat or into the Q&A, and we'll get those answered for you.
All right, cool. So for the book giveaway, what we're doing, Jen?
Okay, so we do have another quick question. So strategic versus operational, how do you use the framework to balance between those two types of activities?
Yeah, so from a strategy perspective, I think that what you have to do is, that's where you're going to have to get the management buy-in, and they're going to have to agree that this is the way to do that. And from an operational standpoint, you want to make sure that whatever you're doing operationally supports that thing, and supports that goal from a strategy perspective. That's why I say that it's important to have those goals and the vision, and to communicate that vision, because there's going to be certain things that, look, we're not going to detect this, and you just got to be like honest and frank within that organization. So look, this is what we're focusing on now, and that's on our 3-year roadmap. That's on our 1-year roadmap. And I think honesty is the best policy. Some people, when they overpromise, they might say, we're going to get this new firewall, or we're going to get this new endpoint protection, and it's going to solve all our problems. Well, you just can't do that. So I would say that you just got to make sure that the strategy is lined up from an operational standpoint, and that strategy is like, we want to do this, and from a budgeted standpoint, you're going to have to say, we need, and this is the budget we need, whether that's human resources, whether that's software, whether that's whatever, it may be training, to get to the next tier from that tier perspective. And so just make sure everything's aligned, and make sure that you're being radically transparent is what the term I like to do. Be totally radical. Like, look, this is what's up, and I think that you'll be okay.
Awesome. We have a couple other questions that came in as well. For a company who has already established a solid development culture that has not implemented any cybersecurity policies, how do you recommend that you introduce frameworks like NIST and MITRE?
I think the first thing you do is you do a review. You said, look, we're going to do a security review. And I would say that the NIST framework is the best place to start, because if you do a review, you'll be surprised on how many things that people use. People use, two-factor authentication every day. People use SSL certificates. There's tons of different things that people use, that if you actually looked at it, it fits into a cybersecurity program. You might not be calling it cybersecurity. you might be doing best practices, but I would say that you should review it based on this first, and then go from there. And then you can actually introduce, like, I looked through this, from a talking to management, like, look, we did this review, and then these are the next steps. It's like, this is what I think we need to do.
So piggybacking off of that, for somebody who is maybe the only person on their team or in their org familiar with MITRE, how would you recommend getting buy-in from the rest of the team?
Yeah, so what you could do from that standpoint, it's a part of me that always tells people, it should make sense if I said, hey, we have X, Y, and Z. I want to make sure that these things work. That might be the first thing, is starting with something you've already invested money in. Another way to do it is, like, if you do product review, I should be in charge of bake-offs. If you're in charge of those bake-offs, say, hey, we need an evaluation framework. I'm choosing MITRE for that, and that would be a great way to introduce MITRE as well. You're buying DLP, you're buying something like that, or you could actually use that to actually keep the vendors honest and judge it based on that criteria, and that'll give some big points. The MITRE ATT&CK Framework is not going anywhere. For everybody listening, it's here, and I think it's here to stay. Vendors are using it, and there's even people that I know in very mature organizations are hiring people just to run the MITRE ATT&CK Framework as far as purple team goes. So it's here to stay.
And then adding on to that again, how would you recommend getting executive leadership to understand that they need to play an active role in the security of their organization?
I think that what you can do high level is if you actually look at the document, these documents that I'm talking about, it actually gives a lot of really good vernacular to speak to them on their terms from a business and risk management perspective. And they should understand that because risk is a part of every business. And so if you use the right words, like, it's funny because a lot of people that I know, because I'm a nerd, and they'll say, oh, nerds don't understand how to talk to management. But I said, if you get these NIST documents, the NIST documents are talking about risk management. And basically, if you can show them that, from what I heard through the grapevine somewhere, that Equifax is liable for $8 billion after they got breached. $8 billion. That's crazy. So if they don't understand that, and you putting it into a risk conversation, I don't know how you can help them. You might want to find another job.
Awesome. So we have a few more questions, but I'm thinking in the interest of time, let's go ahead and do the book giveaway. And then for anybody who maybe doesn't have a hard stop at 2 o'clock, we can spend a couple of extra minutes going through a few more questions.
All right, cool. So the book giveaway, you're going to have to go, it's going to be 2-part. You got to go to ThreatCare on Twitter and follow the account. And also, you gotta add us, the ThreatCare account, on what movie, because we did a poll recently, and we did a poll on what was the top hacker movie ever, and tell us the results of that poll, and if you agree with it or not. So go follow ThreatCare, find where we posted we did a survey on the best movie, hacker movie, at us. Tell us if you agree with the selection. That's how you win a free book.
And whoever gets that done first is going to be the winner.
That's correct.
So we'll give everybody a few minutes to scramble.
All right, we'll take one more question. Hey, and whoever wins it, we'll DM you. We'll exchange information, and we'll send you a book.
Okay,
we'll do one more question. Couple more, 2 more.
So in deciding frameworks to build an information security program, how would you compare NIST to ISO 27001 or 002?
Yeah, so I think that NIST is more actionable than any other framework, as far as I can tell. And I think it's compact as well. And what's cool about this, if you have any other regulatory requirement, the NIST is going to get you like well on your way to do most of them. If you can consistently be at a high tier with the cybersecurity framework, you're going to be good for any kind of audit that you need to get through. That's how I feel about it.
Awesome. And then I have a question that I'd like to ask. If people have additional questions after this or want to get in touch with us to learn how ThreatCare might be able to help them with NIST or MITRE, how can they do that?
Yeah, so everybody hit me up. As you know, I'm Marcus Carey. You can email me at marcus@threatcare.com anytime. Follow me on Twitter. I'm a hoot. My DMs are open on Twitter. And so this session was recorded. So if you need to share it with someone, I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully my coughing didn't totally turn you off. Yeah, I'm really glad that y'all attended, and hit me up at marcus@threatcare.com for any other additional comments, feedback, or if ThreatCare can help you out.
Cool. So for anybody whose questions we didn't get to, yeah, I would recommend asking Marcus on Twitter or via email. And we really appreciate y'all coming and hanging out with us for an hour and talking about cybersecurity.